We laughed at him every single day until our lungs burned, treating him like the village idiot, the punchline to every joke told over wine and roasted meat. Noah was the crazy old man on the hill, the lunatic building a monstrosity of wood, in the middle of a desert where rain was nothing more than a myth, whispered by our grandfathers. I would walk past his construction site, dust coating my sandals, and scream at the top of my lungs, "Hey, old man, where is your ocean? Are you planning to sail across the sand?" He never shouted back. He never got angry. He would just pause, wipe the sweat from his forehead with a rag that was filthier than the ground, and look at me. It wasn't hate in his eyes. It was a terrifying, deep pity that I couldn't understand back then. I understand it now. I understand it perfectly as the water rises above my chest. The heat in those days was oppressive, a physical weight that pressed down on your shoulders from the moment the sun reached the horizon. It was a dry cracking heat that turned the soil into iron and made the air shimmer with mirage. That's what made his project so utterly insane to us. We were living in a world that was thirsty, begging for a single drop of dew. And there was Noah, cutting down gopher wood, dragging massive beams up the incline, sweating and toiling for a disaster that seemed impossible. My house was close enough that the sound of his hammer became the rhythm of my life. Thud, 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 day and night. It was the heartbeat of his madness, and we hated him for it. We hated his conviction because it made us uncomfortable, though we would never admit that aloud. Instead, we turned our discomfort into mockery. We threw stones at the hull of his ark, listening to the hollow echo, laughing as he ignored the insults to apply pitch to the seams. Then the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't the weather at first, it was the silence. The birds stopped singing, the crickets stopped chirping. A strange, heavy vibration began to hum through the ground, something you felt in your teeth before you heard it with your ears. I remember standing on my porch, a cup of wine in my hand, watching the horizon. They came in a line that stretched as far as the eye could see. Animals. Thousands of them. They weren't running. They were marching. Lions walked beside goats, wolves beside lambs, bears plodding along with a docile, trance-like focus. There was no growling, no hunting, no fear. It was unnatural. It was wrong. A chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. I looked at my neighbor, a man who had mocked Noah just as loudly as I had, and saw the color drain from his face. "It's the heat," he stammered, trying to rationalize the impossible. "The animals are confused by the drought. They smell water in the wood." We nodded, desperate to believe the lie, and poured more wine to drown out the gnawing feeling that we were witnessing a verdict being passed. We kept partying, we kept drinking. We danced louder to cover the sound of that endless procession of hooves and paws entering the wooden structure. We had to be louder than them, or else we would have to admit that the old man on the hill knew something we didn't. And then, the procession stopped. The last pair of creatures disappeared into the dark belly of the ark. The silence returned, but it was heavier now, pregnant with doom. I saw Noah stand at the threshold one last time. He looked out over the valley, over our homes, over us. He didn't say a word. The host looked, and for a second, I almost ran to him. I almost dropped my cup and sprinted up that hill. But pride is a heavy chain, and I stayed rooted to my spot, smirking to hide my terror. Then, a sound like a thunderclap without a cloud shook the foundations of my house. The massive door of the ark swung shut. It wasn't just wood hitting wood, it sounded like a prison cell locking, or a coffin lid closing. It was final. The sky changed color instantly. It didn't turn gray like a normal storm. It turned a bruised, violent purple, then black as pitch. The wind didn't blow. It screameth. It screameth. It tore the awnings off our shops and whipped the sand into blinding clouds. And then, the first drop fell. It hit my arm like a stone. It was cold, unnaturally cold. Then another, then thousands. It wasn't rain, it was an assault. The Bible of the sky tore open, and water didn't just fall. It pounded the earth with the force of a weapon. Within an war. The dry creek beds were raging torrents. Within 3 hours, The water was at our doorsteps. The mockery died in our throats instantly. The laughter was extinguished like a candle in a hurricane. I grabbed my wife, my children, and we ran. But where do you run when the world itself is drowning? We scrambled up the slopes, slipping in the mud that was once our dusty road. The water was rising with a speed that defied logic. It bubbled up from the ground and poured down from the heavens. The fountains of the great deep have broken open. Someone screamed, his voice barely audible over the roar of the deluge. We climbed onto our rooftops first, huddled together, shivering, watching our furniture, our livestock, our lives float away in the dark, churning debris. But the water didn't stop. It swallowed the houses. It swallowed the trees. We were forced higher up the jagged rocks of the mountainside. A desperate, clawing mass of humanity, realizing too late that we were on the wrong side of the door. That was when I saw it. The ark. It had lifted off the ground, buoyant and secure, dark and massive, against the lightning-streaked sky. It drifted past us, carried by the very currents that were killing us. It was so close. I could see the rough texture of the timber I had thrown rocks at. I waded into the freezing water, the current tugging at my legs, trying to drag me down. I swam, fighting the debris, swallowing mouthfuls of muddy, bitter water until I reached the side of the boat. I hammered my fists against the wood. "Noah," I screamed. "Noah, open up! It's me. It's your neighbor. I have children, please." My hands bled as I pounded on the pitch-covered planks. I could hear the muffled sounds of life inside, the lowing of cattle, the rustle of straw safety, just inches away. But there was no answer. The door was sealed by a hand greater than Noah's. He couldn't open it even if he wanted to. The silence from within that vessel was louder than the storm outside. It was a rejection that shattered my soul before the water could take my body. I realized then, clinging to the side of that boat as my strength failed, that the time for mercy had passed. Mercy had been 100 years of hammering. Mercy had been the open door while the sun was shining. Now, there was only judgment. The current ripped me away from the ark. I watched it drift into the darkness, a solitary speck of life in an ocean of death. I swam back to the sliver of mountain that remained, collapsing beside my family. The water lapped at our feet, cold and relentless. We held each other, not speaking because there were no words left. The arrogance, the jokes, the skepticism, it all seemed so small, so stupid now. The regret was heavier than the water. It wasn't the fear of death that paralyzed me. It was the agonizing realization of how wrong I had been. I had traded salvation for the approval of fools. I had traded safety for a few moments of laughter. As the last peak went under and the cold darkness took us, I didn't think about the pain. I thought about the look in Noah's eyes all those years. I thought about the warnings I had ignored. The water filled my lungs, and my last thought was a silent apology to the man on the hill. The rain never stopped, but by then, it didn't matter. We were already gone. The world was washed clean, and we were the stain that had been removed. The story of the flood isn't just about water. It's about the doors we refuse to enter until it's too late. If this story made you reflect on the chances we take for granted, please support this channel. Click the subscribe button, hit the like, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. And tell me in the comments, what is the arc in your life that you might be ignoring today?